God's Garage with Dr. Don Hughes, Dr. Barry Cook. Real issues, real talk. And now, here is Don and Barry.
Welcome back to God's Garage. We are your hosts, Barry Cook, Don Hughes. We're in part two of, we had such a good time last program, Barry. We're talking about the preparation of apostles, the preparation of the gift of apostles, moving into that apostolic ministry, moving into the gift. We laid a great foundation. We encourage you, if you haven't been able to, go back on our website, go back on Facebook, go back on YouTube, and you can watch that program. We're going to move into part two. What we want to talk about, and if you've got your Bibles, I encourage you to get your notebook, write these things down, because we're going to give you some good thoughts. We're going to look at Jeremiah chapter 1 and verse 5, because we're talking about the preparation of apostles. You know, and before I read this verse, let me say real quick, Barry, I remember, traveling as a traveling minister. I moved into pastoring for several years, pioneered churches, raised up churches. But in 1987, I was sitting in my office in Northern California. I'd pioneered a church. It was growing. It was successful. People getting saved, filled with the Holy Ghost. By the way, people still should be getting filled with the Holy Ghost. Right. And it wasn't audible like Dad Hagin talks about, but it's probably the closest thing ever. I heard in my spirit the Lord say, I've called you to the gifting and the office of an apostle. And brother, back then, it wasn't every day in every book and every terminology and every message hearing about apostles and apostolic. And it so scared me, Barry, I didn't tell a soul for years. I didn't tell my spouse. I didn't tell the team. I didn't tell my staff. The ministers that I ran with in the Bay Area of San Francisco, I didn't tell them. I thought they were going to think I was crazy. But that thing, from the moment God spoke it to me, in the mind of God, that was already my gifting and calling, but I didn't function in that really until a prophet came and reconfirmed. One of my best friends reconfirmed in 1999, and that's the only reason I knew it was a supernatural encounter, because I had never told a soul and never voiced it. And he read my mail while we're out there at the grill barbecuing chicken. He said, "Why are you running from your calling?" I said, "Man, what you talking about?" He said, "The office of apostle, God spoke to you about it." And dude, I started weeping because and he said, "Promise me you won't run from it." And listen to how he ended it. "No matter what it costs you." 3 weeks later, I buried him. But I made a promise. Has it cost me? Yes. Has it cost you to operate in this gifting? People that don't understand you, friends, relationships, people that have rejected you because they knew the boy growing all the way up. They knew Saul, and now here's Paul, and they don't know how to deal with it. They don't have, so, we're going to look at Jeremiah 1:5, and I want you to comment on it, because last program we read what Paul said in Galatians in the New Testament. So let's go back to the Old Covenant for a moment. Let's go back to the prophet Jeremiah, because you get the same terminology in the Old Testament that we got from Paul in the New Testament about the forming process. Jeremiah 1:5, it says this: "Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before you came forth out of the womb, I sanctified you. I ordained you," watch this, "as a prophet, and where? Unto the nations." So there's another thing, like Paul said, Jeremiah's getting it from God. Look, here's the thing. Before they knew you, I knew you. Before you existed, you existed. And God had already walked out his life, like he's Alpha and Omega. He's walked out our life. The steps of a righteous good man are ordered of the Lord. And he said, look, you're called, you're anointed, you're separated from your womb. Here's your purpose. Here's your gifting. Here's your calling. Here's your talent. And here's who it's to.
Absolutely.
So how can you say there wasn't preparation for him to walk in that?
Well, there was absolutely preparation. But that's how it is. God sees us from an early age. I mean, and we can't let the early days, we can't let the upbringings. As I often talk about, most of the people throughout our history, we look at and we realize had crazy childhoods. A lot of them were abused. A lot of them were, around alcoholic parents. I mean, some of our great healing evangelists throughout history, their Parents put liquor in their baby bottles in order to shut them up so that they could party, and
Oh, you don't hear that stuff talked
this kind
about.
of stuff But these are things that they dealt with. A lot of them came from abstract poverty. A lot of them came from terrible health issues.
Yeah.
Why am I saying all this? Because underneath all of that, God knew all of that kind of stuff. So underneath all of that was these things that those particular elements were going to refine that gifting as it came out. He knew from his mother, from his. I'd think about what stories to tell or what avenue to take or whether to tell biblical parallels. But I'll just say for myself, my mom used to always say that when I was little, I would line my teddy bears up and stuff around, and I would take the hymnal off the piano, and I would act like I was preaching to them and just babble at them and stuff. And honestly, I didn't know anything about that. There wasn't a preacher that I was seeing directly in the family. It was just an
Something
impression
in
that I
you.
had.
Come on now.
It was an impression that I knew didn't come out until later on. But then again, when I was 8 years old, I had an experience with this angelic being, and it wasn't because I was just living all holy and seeking God every day and all this. It was just a normal kid. Now I did read my daily living Bible just because I wanted to, and that was weird too. My family, because I wanted to do a devotional every day, and I liked my mom to read the daily bread to me and this kind of stuff.
I remember those.
Which was it was just me. I don't know why I liked it. Nobody was telling me. I didn't necessarily have an example of it around in my life, but something was beating in my chest. So I believe it was in my DNA, even from way back then, that this was something. But I'll tell you what, it has been tried over the years. And when you walk in an apostolic call, you notice that most of the people, even if they were identified at an early age as an apostle, which I wasn't until later on in my life, I had that propensity from a young age and characteristics. And I look at the things I was even trained in pre-ministry are all things that I didn't like at the time and didn't see their significance, but now have all ended up being things that have helped me and benefited me at one phase or the other, or in all of them, or they're all still culminating to work together. God knows before the foundation of the world. And Don, I know I want to toss this back over, and I know I took just a minute, but let me just give just a brief reminder, guys. When we talk about this kind of stuff, I just want you to understand, on a broad sense, to complicate it even more instead of to make it simpler. On a broad sense, the Bible says in John chapter 1 that the Word, Christ, was inside of God before the foundation of the world. Then Ephesians 1:4 says that we were in Christ in God before the foundation of the world. Because we had to proceed from somewhere. I know this is a big concept. We had to come from somewhere. And if we have a spirit, even if our spirit isn't regenerated yet, our spirit had to come from somewhere. A spirit isn't manufactured like a flesh out of the ground, or like an organ just made out of fleshly utensils. It is a spiritual being. God is spirit. So understand that if it proceeded from God, then it was with God from the beginning. This is why the Bible says eternity was put in the heart of every man. So when we talk about Jesus being crucified before the foundation of the world, there's already a divine imprint in your spirit before you are ever born or take on a body, put on a suit of a body. There's an imprint of what Christ has done for you on Calvary, the need for Christ, before any of us ever got here, including Jesus. We were in Christ, in God,
slain before the foundation of the world.
Before the foundation, and I can go on and on with text. So when we're talking about this concept, it's not it's not a far-fetched concept.
No.
This is what this whole thing's based on, is a creator and coming out of the mind of God.
Well, you see Paul and you see Jeremiah called before and separated from the womb into the ministry and the function. All right, the calling is immediate. The separation from the womb I get. But in our notes, and I think we need to talk about it, an apostle's not made overnight.
Right.
Just because you're called, You know, how many
Yeah.
times have you gotten a prophetic word in your life, and in our immaturity or whatever, we get a word, you know, Sunday, and we think it's going to be fulfilled by Friday at 5 o'clock.
I know.
Well, it might be Friday, 5 o'clock, 10 years later, and people think, well, that's punishment, or why is it dragging out? I believe that all of that, God is forming and processing you to look like and become the thing He's already declared over you. In 1975, I entered the ministry at 17 years old, traveling, singing. It wasn't for 24 more years that the first time I quit running and actually stepped in to my purpose that I am walking in today, and no, I'm not going to hide from this calling
Commodity's faith. Commodity, that's what I was saying earlier. The commodity is still faith. The commodity He put in is what bridges the gap and makes the difference. Will I find faith when I come? Meaning I put all this stuff in a whole bunch of people. Some will go this far, some will go that far, some will stop here, some will never believe, some will let what the enemy said sit over them. But I put stuff in every single person in the faith. That's what God did. He put it in us from the faith, you know, the foundation of the world. I mean, His will, His movement is in us.
Don't you think, too, Barry, that the time frame of development and preparation is different with every man or woman, simply because, let's be honest, our own hard-headedness, our own struggles, our own, you know, I mean, and we put it in the notes here. I mean, in the development of moving into that gifting, that calling, I mean, your mind's being developed, your character's being developed, your personality, your patience, humility, meekness, knowledge, faithfulness, all that we put in the notes.
Yes.
But watch this. Fruit is not a gift. Gifts are given. Fruit is developed.
Right.
For me to operate in fruit, that means you got to go through things. It's a process.
Yeah.
And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes you're victorious, sometimes you're defeated. But all of it is a learning and a process moving all of you that are watching, into your purpose and your calling and your destiny. I would rather have 20 years of preparation and 2 years of fruitful, successful ministry than 2 years of preparation and 20 years of misery because I wasn't ready.
Man, you know, it is all about being trained through your stuff, and really it never ends. And again, the problem is a lot of times we stop along the trail, and that's why when I talk about faith being a commodity, because when it boils down to is we have this potential within us. And so when I talk about Him knowing that this was in Him from the foundation of the world, that meant He knew that, but He still had to walk out that calling. I mean, I know that I've been called, and I'll be honest with you though, that has kept me, because there's plenty of times my head has and says, this is crazy. You know, why do you even keep doing this?
Wow.
Do you even believe this? I mean, now what is going on? Just take a break. Is there not a sane person in the kingdom of God? I mean, all these things, including myself, you know, you go through all of these things, but the problem is that thing on the inside of you, that witness of the Spirit of God, will awaken you over and over and over again. But it is up to you to put your faith together and move forward. You have to apply your faith.
Let's talk about this a minute, Barry. Why, in the process, in the preparation, why are right relationships so important?
Well, you know what? Number one, there are people that try to hold you back in preparation.
It's good.
Because basically they help you to a degree, but they don't want to help you too much. Number one, they don't have a plan for you. Anyway, they don't know what to do with you except to serve them. And number two, you know, they really don't know what to do with your particular calling, nor are they even really trying to understand it. I mean, they're not. I mean, half of them aren't, more than half. They're not. It's just a matter of, oh, that's great. Well, come on in then. You'll do great. And But they're not trying to see and develop the gifts and call, because basically we've neutered church down to anybody can do it. Just buy the package. You don't really necessarily have to have an unction or a calling anymore.
Wow.
Just buy it in a box and go do it, and it'll be great. And I don't have a problem with that. I think all the churches we can have are wonderful. I think just like, you know, fitness. I mean, people say there's too many gyms. You said, I'm like, you know what? I don't care, because it helps people stay fit. If people stay fit, that's good. It'll help them out. But the bottom line is, you know, there's not too many. And out of these, though, needs to rise the kind that penetrate. You be what you're called to be, but somebody else needs to be what they're called to be. The preparation also comes from our own things in our struggle that limit us.
Yep.
I mean, in our
Yep.
own
Yep.
minds, our limitations, our struggles, the way we think about ourselves, our identities, the way we see ourselves, the way we move into things. That's another reason that we're struggling with. And the third reason is that we have delays in our preparation is because we're always jumping off before we're finished. I saved that to last because what I said that first.
Yeah.
You know, but we're always jumping off until we're finished.
Trying to get off the table for the operation's
trying to get off the
done.
table before we're finished. Trying to get off the altar before it's burnt. You know, we keep a leg off, we keep an arm off, or
Right.
whatever. You know, in the altar they had to make sure nothing was hanging off.
Yes.
You know, it couldn't be hanging off. Had to be up on there. So you got to get everything on there. You can't have a hand laying off because he needs your strength and authority. You can't have your foot hanging off because he needs the path that you
Right.
choose to go. Hey,
You know, and here's the thing, Barry, this isn't popular, but listen, those of you that are watching and that will watch this in the future, listen to me. This is on our notes. I'm going to hit these points because it's important. All of your preparation, it comes through relationship. Watch this. It comes through rejection.
Right.
It comes through obscurity. I hate to tell you this. I'm not trying to prophesy doom and gloom, but anybody that's done anything for God knows what the wilderness is. They know what,
Yeah.
you know. And let me help you. Please hear me by the Holy Ghost. Wilderness is not punishment from God. The wilderness is always a season of preparation, getting ready for you to move into your destiny, your purpose, your calling. How long you stay there is up to you. It's not God.
That's right.
Israel was supposed to be there 7 to 11 days. They turned it into 40 years. Listen, learn what God's trying to tell. And listen, that's what, in my wilderness seasons, and I'm going to say it, seasons, plural. I've had more than one in 44 years of ministry. You know what? Let's be honest, Barry, that's when we question our calling. That's when we question, what am I doing? Is this worth it? Is anybody listening? Have I touched anybody?
Well, you know, the Bible talks about Jesus growing in stature and wisdom and favor with both God and man.
And man.
And so there's natural elements that have to be developed in us that have to do with even our personality, our communication skills, the way that we interact, and all of these kind of things. And sometimes we don't do them because we want to do them. We do them because our calling requires them to accomplish what we are being called to accomplish by heaven. Because when it says that Jeremiah was called from a young age, and it says that he had authority, he was given authority over nations and kingdoms. And God starts growing authority even from a young age. Because if you notice, the flip side of this is most people who are called to be apostles, even when they weren't necessarily leaders, they still led something. They had people following them. They were always the instigator of something, and everybody else got in trouble because they started it.
Oh, yeah,
there
yeah.
was still this thing in them to penetrate, to break through, to cause a response, to go against the grain, because it's innate within them. That's why so many of the apostles that we have end up coming out of prison, and they're some of the best apostles ever, because that God
goodness,
trained them. He
goodness,
refined
goodness.
them. He brought them up to a point, developed skills, then crushed them, and said, now, we're going to put that back together, and you're going to work for me, and this is going to be fantastic.
Saul became Paul. Look at it.
And now the whole dichotomy, because now the church, you know, just like they were afraid of Paul, it says they don't want to have him and they didn't trust him. Like, who is this dude? Because what happens is your authority starts to grow with nations. Nations represents natural authority. It starts to grow with men. I remember at young ages, I'd be put in something, and I'd end up managing it and be the youngest person in the facility thinking, what am I doing here? I mean, I hadn't even been doing it as long as these other people.
Right.
But there was something in me, you know, and it says he was put over kingdoms, which is a spiritual element, because then you begin to discover you got some authority in the spirit realm, you know. You watch people do things, and then you step up and do it, and you're like, wow, God just moved. Huh. You know, and it's interesting. And God scatters these throughout our life in order to kind of carrot us, you know. Get us going after that carrot.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're talking about, all right, think about, we read Jeremiah 1:5. He said, before I formed you, I knew you. Now watch this. Before you came out of this will upset some people, especially if you still got a little religion in you. Before you came out of the womb, I sanctified you. Jeremiah was sanctified prior to the release through the womb. And then he goes on to say, and I ordained you. Now, today we think ordination is being in the service where 12 guys lay hands on you and sign your name on a certificate and you put it on the wall. That's what we refer to as ordination.
Yeah.
But God said, no, Jeremiah, I set you apart in the womb. I ordained you and gave you your calling in the womb. I gave you your function, a prophet. And even before you came out, I'd already walked out your life, and you're going to be a prophet to the nations. I mean, you talk about a pre-planned, map for his life. He had already done it. And so what happens? And Jeremiah gets out, and you read through his story, you read through his book, and all of a sudden, I like to say it this way, he kept moving forward, and the more he kept moving forward, the more he came into another prophetic word that God had already spoken over his life, that he was waiting on the fulfillment of it to catch up to get to that point.
Now let me tell you the flip side of reality versus present day ministry stupidity. There we go.
Okay, go ahead.
There's a nice frame. He didn't have any converts.
Well, say that again.
Jeremiah preached his whole life and was called the weeping prophet. He didn't have any converts. You know why he was called the weeping prophet? He went to quit all the time. Jeremiah's life consisted of beatings, persecution. Matter of fact, I was just reading the other day, listening to the Bible while I was working out, and he was talking about him being thrown into a pit, a sewage pit, and that he found some old sewage rags, the kind you wipe your butt with. And he found these old rags, and he put them together and was able to get himself out of the poopy pit.
Oh, my goodness.
And then while he's in the middle of it all, he's having a conversation with God, and he's trying to repent, and he's calling on God, challenging him for his call. And then he gets out, and he goes through some more stuff. So I'm just telling you, guys, when we always talk about the great apostle Paul, but Paul was shipwrecked, Paul was beat, Paul was left for dead, Paul was left for drowning. Paul said,
yes, he did.
When he was calling, his word from the Lord was, I want to tell you all the things you get to suffer for my name. This is the modern opposite of the modern crap that comes out now. That's what I'm saying. People were born at different times to fulfill different purposes.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
According to church history, what we're about to get is, because we have got this appetite for this certain type of food in the body of Christ that is basically generic, that is basically unnutritious, that is basically put together, with synthetic elements, meaning we all get together, we plan it all totally out to the T. Nobody really seeks the Lord for the Spirit of God in it. So on and so forth. We cut out the Holy Spirit. We're embarrassed by him. We really don't want him. We make excuses for him to visitors. And so he's not just going to show up. We can try to manufacture a goosebump, but I'll tell you what, I've been in Celine Dion concerts that if I didn't hear what she was saying, I'd think the Holy Ghost was all over me, but it wasn't the Holy Ghost. It was because of her gifting was bearing witness to my created being.
She hit that note and the hair stood up on your arm.
Anyway, and that's both spiritual and natural, which is another story. Here's my point. If we're born for different times to fulfill different purposes for God, and if the pattern throughout church history then is to give the opposite of what we need, let me just ask you a question then. What would be the opposite now of what everybody likes? That's what God is about to raise up.
Oh, my God.
You're not going to probably like it in the beginning.
Oh, my God.
Some will like it because the rebellious think, another rebellious person. But these aren't rebellious people. Nor are they unchurched people, even though they talk strong. Nor are they submitted or committed people. They're there. Nor are these people that when they cry about excesses of tithing and offerings, they're trying to say tithes and offerings aren't for today. They're not.
Well,
they're just saying, let's get the flesh out. Let's get the spirit in. Let's keep the flow of God open. I'm not judging you. I've come in grace. But let's open the flow and trust God and watch heaven and earth connect.
All right. In the last few minutes, Barry, I think let's try to end with this because we're going to go another direction on this third part of this.
Yes.
Jesus trained his 12 for 3 years.
That's good.
Right about 3 years.
That's good.
Now watch these things. Here's the bullets. They were disciples before they were apostles.
Absolutely.
Now, you can get offended and you can email me if you want, but if you've never been discipled, if nobody's ever mentored you, if nobody's ever trained you, if you've never been responsible to another spiritual seasoned man or woman of God who's invested and poured and trained and encouraged and challenged and prayed with you and fasted with you and prophesied over you and corrected you, you are not an apostle.
If you can't pastor and love people, if you think that you're too strong or too heavy or too deep for them, you're still not matured as an apostle. If you think that you're not called to be a teacher and someone asks you to teach something, but you don't get to show your great and mighty anointing because then you don't understand the role of an apostle. Ooh. Paul was pulled to the side many times and all he did was teach for 3 years in a back room.
Yes, he did.
Okay, and he considered that apostolic ministry. The thing about it is apostolic preparation deals with the mind, it deals with character, it deals with personality, it deals with patience, it deals with humility, it deals with meekness, it deals with knowledge, it deals with faithfulness, and this comes through relationships.
Jesus taught them, Barry, for 3 years. Watch this. He talked to them, he encouraged them, he corrected them,
yes.
He gave them power,
yes.
He gave them authority
yes.
and dominion,
exactly.
He charged them,
yeah.
and he sent them out. Now watch this.
Yeah.
Those 12 had the privilege of what none of the rest of us have ever had. And that's not just learning about him through the book. They sat at his feet and were taught and trained. You know, we're going to get in this in the next program. Moses didn't get that privilege.
No.
He didn't sit at the feet of Jesus.
We got to close out here today, but I just want to tell you guys that no matter where you are today, I just want to encourage you, just because you go and get a sign up for an e-course on how to become an apostle and what an apostle is, it's not the same as you being taught by someone and you being put in uncomfortable situations, you being asked to do things that challenge your attitude, and you rising above it in character and in spirit and overcoming it with grace and seeing Christ manifested. Those are marks of real apostolic callings. I just want to encourage you, stay faithful, get connected. God is raising up men and women of God and relaunching us into this hour. And we're honored to be here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, planning the Rev House Church.
Yes. And you know what? Listen, we don't talk about it much on our program, and you know, we probably should do more. But you can go to our website. Dr. Cook has written several powerful apostolic and prophetic books. The heart of Rev House is restoring people and building leaders. I've written 5. My first 2 books are all about restoration, the prodigal.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we're in a series right now on Saturday nights in Tulsa on restoring. The power of the responsibility of the church is to restore people, restore prodigals, bring them home, and bring them home to a safe environment.
That's right.
Listen, we just want to encourage you. We love you. We believe in you. You might be in your wilderness. You might be going through difficulty. You might be questioning your calling, your purpose. Listen, you're in good company. The Bible's full of examples that have done that. We've done that, but we want to encourage you. Stay the course. Keep the mission the main thing, and good things are ahead of you. Your past is behind you. Keep your eyes ahead. Plow forward. We love you. We appreciate you. Barry, what were we going to say?
Success to the kingdom and success to you. Matthew 6:33.
God bless you. We love you.